Something about the moon.
Blood moon.
That's not
It's a moon. That's right, it is.
You tell us every year.
Something about, well, let's look at this next one. The most common answer is, it is something about the moon. So whoever the three people that said that, say you were right. It is, it has something to do, but you don't know why.
Right, that's what we always ask you.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's Sunday after the full moon after the spring equinox.
I think you got it.
Pretty close.
Yeah, only one piece missing. And I'll cover it later. But yeah, that's better. There's two answers to this question. There's a short one and there's a more complete but complex answer. I'll give you the short one now, and at the end of the lesson, you will know the longer but more complex answer. The short answer is Easter is always the first Sunday after Passover. That's the short answer. Determining the next date for Easter is like working a jigsaw puzzle. There's a lot of pieces that have to fall into the right place before the puzzle can be completed. And that is what we'll be doing today. You'll always need a starting point. With a puzzle, most likely you begin with the border or the straight pieces, and for sure you'd like to have the four corners. So we'll pick pieces and we'll start building this together. Today we try to put together a puzzle so we can see why Easter falls on a different day each year. A good starting piece is the Hebrew calendar, it's also called the Jewish calendar. The Hebrew calendar is based on three astronomical phenomena. One, the rotation of the earth on its axis is 1 day. Two, the revolution of the moon around the earth, 1 month. Hebrew calendar now. And three, the revolution of the earth around the sun being 1 year. All those sound sensible? Well, there's a problem with one. 2 out of 3 astronomical calculations we agree with. It is the one concerning the use of the moon to determine a month that is the problem. This is what's wrong with the Jewish calendar. So let's look at how the Hebrews, the Jewish people, how they use this calendar. Towards the beginning of a moon cycle, it appears as a thin crescent, and that is the signal for a Jewish month to begin. The moon grows until it's full. This would be in the middle of the Jewish month. Towards the end of the month, the moon begins to wane until it can't be seen. It remains invisible approximately 2 days, and then the crescent comes back again, and the cycle starts over. A lunar month on the Hebrew calendar. The problem with the lunar calendar is that the moon actually orbits the earth approximately every 29 and a half days. You can't have a half day on a calendar. You could have a 29 and a 30 and a 29 and 30, would that work?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Since you cannot have a half a day in the month, the Hebrew calendar has 6 29-day months and 6 30-day months. Is that reasonable? That's what they did. But look how they built the calendar. 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30, 30 or 29. You had to wait for the rabbi to tell you what's coming up. Another 29, 30, 29, 30, and the last one is Adar. That's the 12th one. So they spread them out, but if you have 6 29-day months and 6 30-day months, only adds up to 354 days. 29, 30, 29, 30, and so that would fall 11 days short. Now the normal is 365 days. If they add a 13th month, that would be like a 30-day month. Then the year, it would contain 384 days. So you can't use the lunar calendar. That would be 19 days too many if you put an extra month on there. So let's look at the numbers again. If you use 29 days on the calendar and 30 days, and you add them up, it's 354 days, it's 11 days short. This was the problem with the Hebrew calendar trying to use the moon to establish months. If you added a 13th month and put 30, you'd be 384 days, so you'd be 19 days over. You see the problem? You can't have lunar months. It does not work. But that was what their calendar was based on. You can see the inaccuracy of the Hebrew calendar as they try to use the moon's rotation around the earth as 1 month. Mathematically, it just does not work. The Hebrew calendar was left unadjusted, being 11 days short. If it was left that way each year, the months would continue to shift backwards and backwards and backwards until finally you would have December coming in the middle of the summer. You'd be losing. If you add one, you'd be going the other way over there. So you just can't do that. Adjusting the calendar to compensate for this shifting of the moons, a 13-month is added every several years, similar to us adding an extra day every 4 years. So, okay, that will be the answer. Okay, so they're going to do that, and they're going to add a 13th month. The rabbi chooses. Remember that they can only add a 29 or a 30-day month to keep up with the moon, 29 and a half days around the earth. Not adding days leaves the year short of days, and adding makes it over. So the Jewish rabbis, they were in control and added an additional month every several years. Just trying to keep the number close to 365. The last month, the 12th month in the Hebrew calendar is called Adar. During a Hebrew leap year, a 13th month is added, and it is called Adar Shani, meaning the second Adar. Okay, now we're not finished with the Hebrew calendar yet, but we're going to look at some other pieces of the puzzle in the calendar, and then we're going to come back to this. Can you see that there's a problem? You can't use the moon it comes around being 1 month, because it's always 29 and a half days. So the Jewish rabbis, they made the decision, no, we won't add this time. Okay, now you're really going to be short. And next year's, let's add, now you're over. They're adjusting every year, whenever they want to. The Gregorian calendar. The calendar that we use today is the most commonly used calendar around the world. It's called the Gregorian calendar, and it is referred to as a solar calendar rather than a moon calendar. Other than a lunar calendar in the Hebrews. Our calendar year is 365 days, based on the fact that it takes that long for the Earth to complete a full orbit around the sun. We all know that it takes really what? 365 and what?
Quarter.
And 1/4 days. However, this is easily adjusted by adding 1 day every 4 years. So, unlike the lunar calendar, you're always over or short, you can never hit it right. Our calendar uses 7 days in 1 week, same as the Jewish calendar. It does impact on what day of the week a certain holiday falls. Talking about our calendar, the Gregorian. These holidays that are assigned a specific date, like 12/25 for Christmas, 1 for New Year's, they will fall on a different day of the week each year. And it's not because of the leap year. So here's why. We have 7 days in 1 week. So if we divide 7 into 365, it does not come out with a whole number. So when you start a new year, it always starts with a new day of the week. January the 1st could be Monday this year. It could be Thursday next year. It could be Wednesday. So it's moving. Now, we don't change the date of January 1. We don't change the day of December 25th. Easter is not assigned a date, so you can see where we're heading. How do we get a date to Easter? The Gregorian calendar replaced the Julian calendar in 1582. The Gregorian calendar was named after a pope, Pope Gregory the 13th. The Julian calendar, who knows what Julian calendar is? I know Willie does, because the last time we had this lesson, you answered it. Now he's forgotten it already. Happens to all of us. Bill,
Yep.
what is it?
The first number is the year. The next three numbers is the day of the year. Like 365, let's say 2002 be 2365. Julian date.
Close. They start on January 1st, that's day 1, day 2, day 3. When you get out to the end, January has 31 days, and February 1 is 32, 33. See, you were part of the way there, but they just use it to 100% straight line. Now, have you ever seen those dates on anything?
Yeah.
The most common was, you remember the little calendars they used to make about this big and you would flip them over? The Julian date was on every page. And the opposite page had the number, how many days were left in the year. And it showed where you were. Well, why is that important? Well, do y'all remember K2Y? Is that what they called it?
Y2K.
Y2K. I was just checking to see if you knew it. What was the problem? What was the problem?
Everything was set
Couldn't handle it.
99, 365.
Okay, we ended up, we have computers that used the Julian calendar for a while, and then that didn't work, and they got on a regular calendar. My mouth's so dry I can't only speak. But when you build a program, you put a date on it. The date was 6 digits. February 25th, 02, 25, and if the month was 1998, it'd say 98. 2-digit year. So as they started approaching 1997, that what are we going to do after 99 is going to be 00. And what's going to happen to all the computers are going to crash. So they had 2.5 years for programmers all over the world to go into these complicated programs, and everywhere you find a date to make the year a 4-digit number instead of a 2-digit number. Y2K. That day hit, and nobody really had any problem. Everybody said, I knew it was a bunch of junk. No, it wasn't. They had programmers working really hard that they corrected that to make that happen, because the computer wouldn't know where to go with the 00 year. Might start out thinking the next year was 01 again. So the calendars that we use today is the Gregorian, and it's the most popular of all the calendars. I don't know that anybody uses the Julian calendar much anymore, but it was mainly for computers. We've looked at 2 puzzle pieces that play an important role in putting together the whole picture, but we haven't gotten to Easter holiday yet. That's a lot of stuff, and we're not even there yet. Now you might be wondering at this point, why use a Jewish calendar to determine the date of a Christian holiday, Easter, when the Jews don't even believe in Jesus? So why would we have a holiday like Easter and we have to wait for the Jews to tell us when Passover was? And you saw the Hebrew calendar, how bad it was, so we know that Passover is all over the board. And, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself. But David said it correctly, and you'll see this in a minute. Let's see if we can find out the connection between the two and why we got there. We know that Jesus rose from the grave on Sunday, and not just any Sunday. What kind of Sunday? What does that mean? Not just any Sunday. It was the first Sunday after the day of Passover. So that's why we don't have a set number like April the 9th every year. Because Jesus rose from the grave on the Sunday, first Sunday after Passover. Oh, that's great. So that's where they want to keep it. So if you recall, Jesus celebrated the Passover dinner with his disciples on Thursday evening after dark. A Jewish day started at sundown. Therefore, the meal was after sunset on Thursday night, and that was the beginning of the next day, which was Friday, and Friday was the Passover. Does that make sense? Back up. Everybody okay? So Jesus celebrated the Passover meal on Thursday night after dark. Because Passover was Friday. Knowing that Jesus was crucified on Friday, Passover Holy Day, and he arose on the following Sunday, it seemed proper for the Christians to set the date of Easter as the first Sunday after the Jewish Passover. Because that's what happened back then. Jesus stepped out of that grave on that Sunday, the Sunday following Passover. That seems simple enough, doesn't it? Not. The Jewish Passover was a moving target. And for a long time, we didn't know until they settled it down. Then we could tell the Christians when Easter is going to be. That was a problem. Originally, selecting the date that Christians celebrate Easter each year had to do with the Jews celebrating Passover, and the day they celebrated Passover each year was based on this Hebrew lunar calendar that we just looked at that doesn't work. And it's very inconsistent. So we couldn't even, as Christians, anticipate where that Passover was going to be. We didn't know if they were going to add another 29 days, 30 days, do nothing. You didn't know. So here, for years, Christians waited for the Jews to tell us when Passover is so we could tell the Christians when Easter was. Therefore, early Christians had to wait on the Jewish rabbis each year to tell them when the Passover would be before they could determine the date for Easter. The Jewish rabbis were very inconsistent about adding a month to a year and whether it would be a 29 days or whether it would be 30 days or don't add anything to do to know when Passover would be. But when do we celebrate? The first Sunday after Passover. Okay? You don't see anything about the moon there. But Passover does have something to do with the moon, but not in the statement. But that's a statement. If somebody asks you, when is Easter every year, it's not on the same day. So, it's real easy. It's the first Sunday after Passover. Oh, okay. And just hope they don't ask you when is Passover. Well, I don't know.
Now you know why they missed the Messiah. They were so confused.
yeah. That calendar was a mess. All we have to know is the date of Passover, and we know the date of Easter. Simple, right? And of course, no, it's still a problem. So let's see. The Jewish Passover, this is not always easy. The Jewish Passover was always to be celebrated during a full moon. The original Passover was not just any full moon, but it was the first full moon after the spring equinox. Did y'all hear a while ago David say the spring equinox? This special full moon was called a paschal full moon. The word paschal means Passover. The Jews established Passover as the first full moon. And David, that was the only thing you didn't have on or after. On or after. The spring equinox. And Joe's going to tell us about the spring equinox.
That's a division of the calendar based on when the end of winter is and the beginning of spring.
I thought he was
miss it.
He's right. He's right. Joe, good for you.
Thank you, thank you.
We do one right here. Yeah. The Spring Equinox by Joe Webb. Latin, that means equal nights. Now, there's a spring equinox and there's a what? Fall equinox. Okay, so we use, for Passover, they use the spring equinox. We all know that the earth tilts on its axis as it rotates around the sun. It's winter for us in the northern hemisphere when it tilts the upper half away from the sun. And it's summer when it gets on the other side, it tilts towards the sun. All right? That makes sense? Maybe. Halfway around the sun, exactly between winter and summer, the earth axis is completely upright. It's not tilted one way or the other. These 2 points are called the spring and the fall equinox. The Jews use the spring equinox. There was, trying to think, the Julian calendar. Anybody know who started that?
Julius Caesar.
Huh?
Julius Caesar.
Absolutely. Julius Caesar started that. He needed something simple to do. 1, 2, 3, up to 365. I forgot that a while ago, but that was named after him.
You need to have a talk with your spell check because singles and signals are not the same word.
Where are you looking at? Oh, I see. But when you spell it wrong and it matches in other words, it doesn't tell you.
Okay, Joe Bad.
Yeah, I used to see him teach sometimes. I see Joe Best there. No. Halfway around the sun, we say exactly between the axes, is completely untilted, it's upright. So the spring equinox, not singles, but shows the beginning of the spring. Christians were back to square one, waiting for the Jewish rabbis to tell them the date of the spring equinox. Oh, because that move used a farmer's almanac, and they go by real well, trying to prepare for the season, the growing season. So that could be a moving target 2 or 3 days from the calendar season. So we didn't know what day we'd call the spring equinox, so we couldn't calculate when they were going to have Passover. In the year 1583, the Christian world decided to pick one date for the spring equinox, and that'd be March 21st. And if you look at a calendar today, you might see on your calendar the spring equinox is the 20th, or it could be the 22nd, because these half days that we have, fourth days we have, and then we add a day, so that moves slightly. So rather than wait for the Jewish rabbis to tell us when the equinox was going to be and when their Passover was, now we knew when the spring equinox was, so we could calculate when their Passover is. And that is, it will be the first full moon after the spring equinox. Kind of hard, isn't it? We'll get through it. The Jewish nation also accepted this date, and now the Christian world no longer had to wait on Jewish rabbis to tell them the date of the spring equinox. So Easter is the first Sunday after the partial full moon, which is the full moon that falls on or after the spring equinox. So we can do it by ourselves now and calculate what it's going to be. Now we have a specific date for the spring equinox. In fact, this year I think it's really the 20th, but if we target one date, it helps us to be able to calculate when Easter is without waiting for them. Since Easter is be the first Sunday after the first full moon or after the spring equinox, the earliest date for Easter is March 22nd. That's the earliest it can be. Since the full moon occurs every 29 and a half days, the latest date for Easter is April the 25th. That's the limits. It can be anywhere into there, depending on the moon. And a lot of you said, I know it has something to do with the moon. Yeah. When you hit a full moon, between those dates in there, then you know that the following Sunday is Easter. Confusing? Anybody want to stand up and recap? Not you, Joe. I don't trust you. So let's do a recap on just some stuff. It is confusing. Number one fact, Easter is always on Sunday. Is that right?
About this particular software, platforms.
Just a minute.
Platforms,
Let-
Don't let me interrupt.
Let me talk to him.
Security verification.
Well, you don't want, this is Biden's press secretary. You Okay, I think
She's telling him when-
I took care of it.
She's telling him how to determine Easter.
So scripture tells us that Jesus rose from the grave on Sunday, the first day of the week. Fact one. Fact number two, Easter is always on the first Sunday following Passover. That's a fact. Scripture tells us that Jesus observed the Passover meal with his disciples on Thursday evening after sundown, meaning that Passover was on Friday, the day of his crucifixion. Fact number three, Passover is celebrated on the first full moon on or after the spring equinox. Spring equinox can be replaced with the date of March 21 now, so we have a specific date. Most of the world now sets March 21st as the date each year for the spring equinox. Probably everybody does that except the old time farmers. They'll look up on the Farmer's Almanac and it could be the 20th or the 21st. For the simplest answer, if it's really simple, Easter is on the first Sunday following the first full moon on or after March 21st. If I gave a test now, could you pass it? It is hard, isn't it? I'm gonna make it easy for you later on.
The answer is you just ask Alexa when is Easter and she'll tell you.
Yeah. Now we're gonna look at some examples, and this is gonna let it settle in how it works. Now, I pulled the calendar from 2014, and we're gonna go through this and see. Okay, March 21st is the spring equinox. Everybody okay with that? Full moon is on March 16th,
That's before it.
so it has no meaning. Absolutely. The full moon is on April the 15th, the next full moon. That's the first full moon on or after March 21st, right?
Easter's on the 20th.
So now that's also the day for Passover. That's how they calculate Passover.
Oh, that's 2014.
Yeah, he just
Yeah.
showed an example.
Oh.
So now then, when is Easter?
20th.
Huh?
20th.
Hope you got it right. I don't know what you think you did. With all those words, it was complicated. So you give people a picture. We can do better with a picture. Let's move it up to 2017. March 21st is the spring equinox. It's in a little bit different position now. There was a full moon on March the 12th. What does that mean?
Nothing.
Nothing. Good for you. Now then we have the partial full moon on April the 11th. So when is Passover?
11th.
No.
So now then when is Easter?
That's Palm Friday.
16.
April 16th.
Is that Friday?
No.
No.
Is it coming more clear, kind of? But now you know why it jumps back and forth. It can go from March 22nd to April 25th, depending on these full moons.
But how does
Huh?
a partial
Ask your husband.
full moon count into it? It's supposed to be full.
Take him 30 minutes. That's a partial.
Oh, Paschal.
Pascal,
What's Paschal?
it means Passover,
Oh,
Passover meal.
okay. Now, I'm on.
Oh.
Now we're up to, we'll do April of last year and March. Same thing, spring equinox on the 21st. There's a full moon on the 18th. Aha, what about that?
Nothing.
Couldn't fool you, could I? How you pronounce that, Joe?
Well, partial.
I have no idea. Haskell. Haskell.
Partial.
I'll take that out for next
I
year.
just thought it was another spell correct error.
So Passover will be on that full moon. So when is Easter?
17.
You really do more, you see it now instead of just here. One more. Let's do this year's. Spring equinox on the 21st. Full moon on March the 7th. Full moon on April the 16th.
That's
Uh-oh,
April the
I didn't
7th.
change my number from the other one. Full moon is on the 7th.
Easter's on the ninth.
Passover is on the 7th. And when is Easter? And that's this year. You see, for a long time, that spring equinox could move partially because we have 365 and a fourth day at a time. So that was always a moving target. So when we got everybody to agree in the year 1582 that we just use March 21st, everybody could base things, especially now, Christians didn't have to wait on the Jews to tell you when Passover was, so you could calculate the day for Easter. Does that make sense? Kinda? I told you there's a short answer and there's a long one, and that's why this is a long one. The date of Easter is not what's important. The meaning of Easter is what's important. Jesus came to earth as a baby born in a manger.
Miniature.
Jesus walked on earth and preached the Word of God. Jesus suffered pain and agony for you and I. Jesus was nailed to a cross for you and I. Jesus died on the cross so you and I could live forever. Jesus was buried in a tomb. Jesus defeated death and he rose from the grave. "40 days later, Jesus ascended into heaven. Jesus died. Jesus arose. Jesus ascended into heaven. And Jesus will return. Are you ready? So what I thought was a long lesson, nobody had much input, it went a lot faster. Think I'm gonna let you out this early? No. I got some bonus ones.
I feel good.
This is the end of the lesson for today. However, in my research, I did find some interesting facts about the moon.
Do people live on the moon?
Huh?
Did you find out people lived on the moon?
Yeah.
Strange thing happened.
What is a blue moon?
The second moon of the month.
Huh?
Second moon of the month.
Yeah, if you had, yeah, well, you're right on target, ain't it? A blue moon is the second full moon that appears in a single month. Doesn't happen real often. Did your mom and dad used to say, yeah, in a blue moon? Not very often.
Once in a blue moon.
The name blue moon has nothing to do with its color. Okay, doesn't. No one is sure where the name even came from. But Willie said it correctly. 2 full moons in the same month. Doesn't happen often. However, the term once in a blue moon is often used to describe a rare event or occasion since it does not happen often. Now y'all all know what a blue moon is. What's a blood moon? A blood moon is simply a total eclipse of the moon. The earth gets between the sun and the moon, and the earth's shadow darkens the moon. However, some light waves bounce around it in the earth's atmosphere, and it makes the moon seemingly slight red. Thus the name blood moon. Y'all heard that before?
Blood. And the moon shall turn to blood.
You're one slide ahead of me.
No,
Joe Beth, take him home.
Take Joe Bed home.
I wouldn't.
Erase that, Bruce.
Blood moon, it should be noted that the actual phrase blood moon is not found in the Bible. Not blood moon. There are references to the moon turning to blood in the end days. That's what Joe said, turning into. A full lunar eclipse occurs normally once out of every 3 lunar eclipses. In Acts 2, it said, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and notable day of the Lord comes. Scholars argue all the time on what that means. Is it just going to happen is it really going to have blood on the moon? No, nobody really buys that. Something, a symbol for something bad about to happen. Does it mean it's going to happen during a lunar eclipse? And some argue that that would be it. You know what? It's not for us to know every single thing in the scripture God reveals. So the moon, it turns the moon into blood at the end of the world. In the book of Joel, you don't study it very much. The sun will be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. So it's at end times, isn't it? Revelation, I looked, when he, the Lamb, broke open the 6th seal, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth made of hair, and the whole moon became, and I like to hear it because it says like blood. It doesn't say blood, but like blood. Can you handle one more? The Gregorian calendar and leap year. I think you know this one. 1 year is 365 days. Actually, it's 365 and what? Fourth, yeah. Or 0.25. We cannot add a part of a day. So we add every 4 years. We add it in the month of February because February had 28 days, so they put the leap year day added into the month with the fewest days in it. Does anybody know why February had 28? Why couldn't they take one and move it from 31 to 30 and put it over here and make it 30? Anybody know why February? Somebody had said the answer earlier, and a guy that caused this, it was Julius Caesar. His favorite month was March. That's when things begin to flourish and come out. And he couldn't wait for it, so he said, well, shorten February by 1 day. It's like that was really going to accomplish something. But that's where it actually came from, why we have February the 28th is such a short month compared to the 30 and 31 days and all the other months. Caesar. What Caesar wants, Caesar gets. Good and bad. Now the number of days in the year, though, here's a problem. It's actually 365.24, not 0.25. So 0.24 times 4, that would be 0.96 that we should be adding every 4 years. Instead, we add 1. By adding 1, it puts the day over by 0.04. Y'all didn't know that, did you? I mean, don't want to talk about it. How many leap years would it take before we were over by one whole day. You take 1, divided by 0.04, 25 leap years, or 100 years. Each 100 years, we could skip 1 leap year. Did y'all know that? If you wait long enough, you're gonna see it.
But wait.
There are a few of them will say.
I don't know when the last one was, so we don't know. It makes sense, it's simple math, but wait. 1 year is actually 365.242,189. That makes even harder math. Yeah, it's spelled wrong. Some formula, but harder math. Surely I didn't confuse anybody. There is a formula about when they're gonna skip a leap year day. And in simple math, it's about every 100 years. The formula was so big and complicated, I couldn't even put it on the screen. How they calculate a year, if it's divisible by 1,000 or if it's divisible by 400, and it just goes on and on and on. So there is targeted dates in all of history that they could skip a leap year. And basically, it's about every 100 years, because you're putting too much in there. Even though we see it's 1/10, but it just keeps adding up. Confusing, isn't it?
Well, you only have a birthday every 4 years,
Yeah.
so you're younger, right?
Yeah. That's all we need.
We just have to wait for the sound of the trumpet and don't worry about the rest of it.
Joe, that brings up something, what, I think I told the class, but I don't know if you were here or not. They said before the rapture takes place, it starts with the sound of a trumpet. And one night, I was sitting there watching TV, Glenn goes to bed at 10, I sat up till 12, watched TV. I heard the trumpet. My heart was going like that, and I was
Wouldn't woke Linda up.
I ran in there, looked, see she's still in bed. I tell you that,
And you said we got left.
that scared me. It really did.
Wake up, Linda, the trumpet play.
Yeah, there's the Jews used for the trumpet. What did they use? What was the horn made out of?
Right.
Ram's horn.
Oh, yeah.
There's a name.
That was before.
SHOFAR, shofar. So that's what they call that horn. And they use it in a lot of their Jewish ceremonies over there. And that's what it sounded like.
What did you?
Maybe you fell asleep and it was on TV, and when you woke up, yeah.
I don't know. All I know is it went boom, 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 boom. Oh my God. There was. Well, you say, oh, I'm ready, let him come. You're not gonna be ready fully. I say, it's gonna be a shocker. Oh, I hope I don't hear that again. Okay, a lot of the stuff was confusing, and I do this about every 4 years or something, kind of reminder. In 4 years, everybody in this room will have forgotten. Some sooner than others. But you know, it's crazy that non-Christians, they don't understand. Well, why does Easter keep? How do you know when? Why don't they give it a date? Because Jesus rose from the dead the first Sunday after Passover. Passover was Friday, and he rose on Sunday, first Sunday after Passover.
But Passover is never on always on a Friday now.
Right. Yeah, it moves, so it's a moving target. Of course, now we can calculate it, now that we have the spring equinox on March 21st. But think about non-Christians. When they ask you that, can you really tell them?
What's the
Yeah,
significance?
give them the short answer, huh?
What's the significance of Palm Sunday?
That was a week before, that Sunday. That was his triumphal entry into the city of Jerusalem. the disciples kept saying, don't go there, because he told them 3 different occasions he had to go to Jerusalem where he would die and he would rise again on the 3rd day. They never understood that. And yet, there's 3 different occasions along the way. Remember, they were all up in Galilee, the northern part, and they're coming down, and they really didn't want him to go into Jerusalem. But word spread, and there were people that followed Jesus in Jerusalem, and they would throw down palm branches down on the ground. That was a sign of, what do you call it, a celebrity or something coming in.
So I wonder why Easter isn't on the 3rd day after Passover instead of the first Sunday.
Somebody made the decision.
The Jews made the decision.
The resurrection day was on Sunday, and they used that, stay on Sunday.
Somebody made
It was the government, so we could have a holiday
Here's Joe Biden.
on Monday.
Who's the other one that said,
It was Johnson.
huh?
Johnson.
Lyndon Johnson? But you need to have an idea. You need to know in your head that you can't explain it completely, but you do know it's the first Sunday after Jewish Passover.
How do they, excuse me, how does the scientists and astronomers know that a year is 365.23156 days? How do they measure that?
I don't know. Computers?
Well, they measure that they had.
But we visited in Cancun, and they took us on a little trip out there, and you've seen this, not like pyramids, but it does go to the top, and there's stones up here, and at a certain time of the year, the sun will shine through, and way back there, the Aztecs, you go up those stairs, guess what, there's 365 steps, and the last step is 1/4 the size of the one below it. I have the same question. How did they know way back then? They didn't have computers. How did they know that it's 365 and 1/4? And it was they can do the steps like it. So it can blow your mind how they go way back and determine all this. So
Well, I spent last Friday watching 5 or 6 hours of Egyptian pyramid building
yeah,
on the Learning Channel. And, they made all these observations to align those pyramids and when the sun was gonna hit the longest day of the year and all this.
yeah,
So they calculated that 2500 BC.
yeah. I don't know how they did all that, but when you see these things, you'll see that they use the sun. You don't see much where it says they used the moon, do you? They used the sun. It was a little bit more accurate than using the moon. The moon was erratic because of the 29.5.
Have you not seen all of the configurations on the earth where the aliens used it to land?
There's a lot that is unexplained when you get down in Venezuela and places way up in the mountains where almost nobody goes, and you send a plane over and you look, and you can see signs and stuff. It's kind of scary.
That's why we call them aliens when they cross our border.
Somebody on Facebook put big trucks showing how they were moving all those big rocks in Stonehenge when the time changes.
I think he lied. What was that magazine years ago that had all the fake stuff in it?
Mad?
No, the Inquirer, National Inquirer.
National Enquirer. Gary's been reading that. Yeah, that's right.
And well, I heard an interesting fact about St. Patrick's Day. Do you know what the 3-leaf clover represents?
No.
The Trinity.
Oh, really? Okay.
Look that up, dude.
Didn't know that.
Uh,
Never had a St. Patrick lesson, so I didn't get to research.